In this video, we'll learn how to create a responsive email template using HTML and CSS. So let's take a look at the template here before we get started. On the left-hand side, I have the full width version, and then on the right-hand side, I have the mobile version. So as you can see at the top, we have a logo off to the left-hand side. Then we're going to have social media links to the right, then a great big banner image beneath that, followed by a title, then the body of the email template, followed by a footer with our contact information. So as you can see, if we flex the email template up and down, it's going to change its form with the social media buttons dropping underneath the logo. And let me go ahead and close out of that, and then I'll let you know what we need to get started. So all you'll need to do to start this tutorial is create an index.html file. So the program that I'm using is a free program called Sublime Text. If you do a simple Google search for Sublime Text, you can go ahead and download that and then create an index.html file. So just open up Sublime Text and save as index.html. And I'm also going to have this file open here in Google Chrome. Okay, so here I have the finished version, and here I have the version that we're going to be working on, and I'll just go back and forth between both so we can see the template being made as we develop it. So let's go ahead and get started by laying out the basics of our HTML document for the email template. So I'm going to write doctype HTML and then close out the HTML tag. Then within that, we're going to have a head section followed by a body section. So this is the basic layout for any and all index.html files or any website that you see on the internet. So now let's drop down to the body section and get started with our first tag here. The first thing that we'll lay out will be the wrapper for the email template. So this is going to be basically the outline of the template where you see the white end and the gray begin. So the way that we're going to use the wrapper is in a div ID. So go ahead and write div ID equals, in quotations, wrapper, and then we'll close out the div. So everything else that we lay out will be inside of this div ID wrapper, starting with the header. So go ahead and write header and then close out the tag underneath the opening tag. The header is going to contain the logo on the left and the social media links on the right. So we'll start with the div ID logo, which will contain the logo image, which we'll add in just a minute or two. And then we'll add the container for the social icons on the right. So go ahead and write div ID, and we're going to call this callout, and then go ahead and close the div. Okay, so now inside of div ID logo, I'm going to go ahead and add the image for the Macintuts logo here. So I'll go ahead and write image source and then the URL for the logo. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste. So all of the images are already uploaded to the internet, and they'll all start with the same URL up to uploads/. So now if we refresh the version that we're working on, here we have the Macintuts logo in its full size here. So the next thing that we'll do is add an unordered list. So write UL class social, and then go ahead and close out the unordered list. And inside of our unordered list, we'll have list items, each one containing an image and link for the social icons. So write li, and inside of that we'll have a href for our link. So for this link, for example, the first one, you can send it to a Facebook page, so https and then facebook.com. And then what we'll do is write target_post blank. So the link sends people to a different page than where the link is being clicked on for Facebook. The next thing that we'll do is we'll need to add the image for the Facebook logo that we see right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the link here, and again it's going to be the macintuts.com address that you see above, and we'll just change the last bit, if you don't have the link already, from macintuts.png to facebook.png. So there we have our list item down there with the Facebook link. So now let's go ahead and add the rest of our social media links here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this Facebook one and change it to google-plus.png. And then the next one will be for Twitter. And obviously you can change the facebook.com link if you want to your Google Plus or Twitter page. And then the last one will be youtube.png. So now if we refresh, we'll have all 4 of the social media icons down here that will link us to the relative social media pages. Alright, so let's drop down, and the next thing that we're going to do is add the banner image that sits underneath the header. So let's create a class and call it div class banner, and then go ahead and close out the div, and we're just going to add the image for the banner image that we're seeing. So it's going to be the same link, macintuts.com/wp-content/uploads/responsive-email.png. Now if we refresh, there we have the banner image. Okay, so next will be the text or body section here of the responsive email template. So let's create a heading 2, and I'm just going to copy this text here and paste it in. And then let's create a paragraph link, or tag rather. So there we have our heading 2 text. And for the paragraph text, I'm just going to add this paragraph in here. And I'll copy it and paste it twice to fill out the body of the template. Okay, so there we have our paragraph content underneath the heading, and now let's add the Learn More button down here. So I'm just going to create some space so we're not looking at the bottom of the video. And staying within the last div for the wrapper, let's create a div class button-holder and then close out the div. And inside of that, we'll create the A class for the actual button. So A class btn for button. And then we'll add href so we can have it as a link later if you wish. For now, I'll just put the hashtag there, which won't send us anywhere just yet. And then I'll write learn more and close out the A tag for the link. Okay, so if we go back to the version we've been working on here, we'll have a learn more link there, which will later turn into the button when we add the CSS in just a minute or two. Okay, so underneath that button we have a line that spans across the page. So we'll just create a div class and call it line, and we'll style it later on. Then underneath that we have this contact text. So I'm going to write P for paragraph class equals contact. And then I'll write Macintuts and then add a line break to send us down to the next line. And then I'm going to put the phone number here, 555. And then another break to send us to the next line. And I'll add the street address. And one more break for the email address. So contact@macintuts.com. And then I'll close out the original paragraph tag, which we have the class contact for. Okay. So now on the version we're working on here, there we have the contact information at the bottom of the page. So that does it for all of the HTML content. Now what we'll do is scroll back up to the top of index.html and let's add our CSS so we can style the email templates layout. So just write style type equals text/CSS. And then inside of it, the first thing that we'll start with is going to be a reset style for the browser itself. And we're going to do away with any inherent margin, border, and padding. So we'll just have margin, border, and padding set to 0. And then the next thing that we'll style will be the body. So if you remember that gray outline color to the side of the email template, that's going to be the body of the page. So we're just going to add that gray color here with hashtag F1F4F4 for the hex value. So that did away with the border and padding. As you can see, our social icons are pushed all the way up to the side of the page, and it's turned into a light gray. The next thing that we'll do is add our font family. So the font family is going to be called Quicksand, and then our fallback font will be sans serif. So what we'll need to do is just add a Google font to the top of our style section. So go ahead and pause the video if you need to add this URL so we can import the Google font called Quicksand. So now if we refresh, we'll have our Google font laid out. Okay, so the next thing that we'll do is add a font size. And it's going to be 18 pixels. And then we'll give it a max width of 800 pixels for the template. And we'll give it a padding of, a margin of 0 auto to center it on the page. To center the template on the page. As you can see, there's the centering, and then a padding of 2%. And then we'll give it the color 565859 for the text. Okay, so there we have the lightened text here. Okay, so the next thing that we'll move on to will be styling the wrapper, and we'll want to center that with margin 0 auto, and then we'll give it a white background. So background, and then the hex value for white is hashtag FFF. So now we should be able to see a white outline here that's centered on the page, and we have the gray border off to the side. Okay, so now let's style our heading 2. We're going to increase the letter spacing to 1%. Then we'll say padding left 2%. And then we'll give it a font weight of 500 to make it have a bold appearance. Okay, so actually it's kind of slim. I think 700 would make it a little more bold. Actually, I forgot the I here in Quicksand, so now if we refresh, there we have the Quicksand font showing up for us. Alright, so let's move down to our paragraph text, and we're going to give that a padding of 2% to space it out some, to create some border between the text and the edge of the template, and then we'll say text align justify to give it a newspaper feel where the vertical lines are straight. Okay, so now let's drop down to our image for the banner image, and we'll give that a max width of 100%. So now if we refresh, there we have our banner image and logo fitting into the 800 pixel width for the email template. And now let's style that line, if you remember, underneath the Learn More button. So that's just going to be a line or class line. So write dot line, and we'll say clear both to create separation horizontally, and then a margin of 4% top and bottom, and then auto left right. And we'll give it a width of 90% of the page with a height of 2%. I'm sorry, 2 pixels. And then we'll give it a background color, which is sort of a gray color, and that's E3, E9, E9. Okay, so now if we look back to the one we're working on, there we have our gray border, which is a little bit of a darker gray than the background off to the side of the template. So let's move back up the template and do our header now. So we're going to give the header a width of 98%, and then we'll do the style for our logo. So we're going to have that float to the left side of the screen, or kind of push off to the left. And we'll give it a margin of 2% top, 0 right, 0 bottom, and 5% left. Then let's give it a max width of 220 pixels. So now if we refresh, there we have our logo in the exact same spot as the original. So now let's go on to our social media links, which has the ID callout. So add hashtag callout, since it's an ID rather than a class, and we'll tell that to float to the right side of the screen. We'll give it a margin of 3% top, 3% right, 2% bottom, and 0 on the left. Okay, and then we'll give it a height of auto, and write overflow hidden. Okay, so now if we refresh, we'll have it off to the right side of the screen. Now we need to take care of the list items to have them display inline. So write social li for the list items, and write list style type none, margin top, 4%, padding 0. Okay. Whoops. I messed something up here. Okay, there we go. Social LI display inline. I meant to do that first. Alright, so now we have a display inline. We're not seeing the same amount of margin from the original, but it should show up once we have it in Gmail, which we're going to do at the end of the tutorial to test the email template. So for the banner, let's go ahead and just create a little bit of margin to the bottom of it to create some separation from the image and the heading 2 text underneath. Next, let's go ahead and style our button, the Learn More button. So we're going to have that float to the right side of the screen. And let's give it a border radius of 8 pixels to give it the rounded feel. Let's give it a color or text color of white, and then a background, or I'm sorry, font size 17 pixels. And then we'll give it the blue background color. So write background, and then it's going to be hashtag 18A0D3. And then we'll give it a padding of 8 pixels to create some separation from the text and the edge of the blue. And then let's take away the underline text with text decoration none. Okay, so let's refresh. And there we have our button. So actually we're going to have this as the BTN class rather than button holder. So just write .btn, and there we have the text showing up white. So I'm going to go ahead and tell the button holder to float off to the right also. And let's give it a margin of 0 top, 2% right, 4% bottom, and 0 left. So now if we refresh, there we have some margin off to the sides. And the last thing that's optional, because some email clients may not recognize this, is button hover. So we're going to change the background color when we hover over the button. So write background hashtag 4EC0EB, and then write text decoration none. Okay, so there's the lighter blue when we hover over it. So the last thing that we'll style here will be our contact info, and we'll want that to be centered, and we'll also give it some margin. So there we have our contact class. So just write dot contact, and then text align center, and then let's give it a margin bottom of 4%. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have our email template all laid out. And I'll take a look at how it appears on the mobile version here for the iPhone 6 in this example. And there we have the responsiveness with the social icons. Let's go ahead and just change one thing here. For the social class, just write float right. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy all of our HTML and CSS and test the email template. So we'll want to go to a website called putsmail.com so we can test it. So I'm going to go ahead and select create a new test email. I'll add the email that I want it to send to, and then I'll just write test email for the subject line. And remember to copy and paste everything that's in your text editor, all of the HTML and CSS. Select move my CSS inline, I'm not a robot, and then send email. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and check my Gmail account to see if it was sent correctly. So here I am in Gmail, and it's looking just like the original. So we have our contact information at the bottom, our Learn More button, the body with the paragraph, the heading 2, our banner image, the logo, and the social media icons up to the top right. So that does it for this tutorial. I want to thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.